to our show that is called Real Shame. It's a show where we, us two guys, watch movies from our movie list of shame or movie blind spot. Basically, it's movies that we haven't seen and we're rectifying it for you. Rectifying? I don't know if that's the right word. We're fixing that.
It is.
This week, well, I'll tell you who I am first. I'm Adam.
I'm Andy.
And this week, Adam, we're watching movies that I've never seen before. And to kick off the week, I'm going to toss it over to Andy to tell you what we're watching today.
All right, based on Peter Shaffer's award-winning play, Antonio Salieri recounts his interactions with and jealousy of Mozart in 18th century Europe in Amadeus.
Can you recall no melody of mine? I was the most famous composer in Europe. I wrote 40 operas alone. Here. What about this one?
Yes, I know that. Oh, that's charming. I'm sorry, I didn't know you wrote that.
I didn't.
So Amadeus was directed by Milos Forman. Milos Forman directed, prior to Amadeus, he directed a few films. One of them, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which was the Best Picture winner for 1975, won some other awards too, if I'm not mistaken. He directed Hair. He would go on to direct Man on the Moon back later on in the 90s, after Amadeus. Amadeus came out in 1984. It was written by Peter Shaffer based on his 1979 play. And the 1979 play that Peter Shaffer wrote was in turn inspired by a play called Mozart and Salieri, written by Alexander Pushkin back in the 1800s. Amadeus was filmed in Czechoslovakia, and Milos Forman is Czechoslovakian or Czech. So he had actually fled Czechoslovakia back in the late 1960s because of things that were going on there. So I think when they went back to film Amadeus was the first time he had been back to Czechoslovakia because he was not really welcome there. Yeah. He was like a dissident, basically. So he kind of had to, he had to like negotiate to come back.
I was going to say, he won that Academy Award with One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and they're like, hey, come back.
They were like, okay, all is forgiven.
You're going to film a movie here? Okay, yeah, cool.
Yeah, all is forgiven. Yeah. But they filmed it in Czechoslovakia because basically... So there's a documentary that's on the Blu-ray of Amadeus that I watched. They filmed it in Czechoslovakia because Czechoslovakia still had, like in Prague, old architecture. Yeah. So they didn't really have to do much to kind of dress it up and make it look like in Mozart's time. They were just like, basically take away the street lights and it's there. Yeah. So that's kind of where they went back to film there. So Amadeus stars Tom Hulce as Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Tom Hulce had been in a handful of movies prior to Amadeus, like Animal House, but he had not done a film since 1980 when he did Amadeus. So it had been about 4 years. F. Murray Abraham plays Antonio Salieri. Elizabeth Berridge plays Constanza Mozart, but she was not originally cast as Constanza Mozart. In fact, Meg Tilly was cast as Constanza Mozart first. Meg Tilly was all the rage at this point because she had done The Big Chill, which we did on the show. Yeah. She'd done Psycho 2, which we did on the show. Yeah. That's the only movies I can think of that we've done on the show that had Meg Tilly.
We haven't done any of the Chucky movies yet.
We haven't done that, yeah. Well, that's her sister. That's Jennifer Tilly. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, no, sorry.
Different Tilly. But she actually did not continue the role, or she was not did not actually film anything in the role because she was in Czechoslovakia ready to film, and she decided to play some soccer with some of the local kids, and she got hurt playing soccer. So she was going to be laid up for like 5 weeks, and the filmmakers were like, we can't wait. They recast her. So sorry Meg. They recast Constanza. What they did, they brought Elizabeth Berridge and one other actress whose name escapes me. They brought 2 actresses over to Czechoslovakia, had them screen test for several days, couldn't make a decision. They finally made a decision, and Milos Forman basically told Elizabeth Berridge, you get the role because the other girl's too pretty to play this role. Milos Forman is cold like that. He's cold-blooded. So anyway, Elizabeth Berridge got the role that way. And
he's
instantly...
like Nurse Ratched.
Yeah, we've seen Elizabeth Berridge she was Annie Oakley in Hidalgo.
Okay.
Yeah, Like, she's not in that movie much.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
she's kind of at the beginning of that film. Simon Callow, who we've seen in 4 Weddings and a Funeral, plays Emmanuel Schikaneder, if I'm saying that right. Schikaneder. Not going to work here anymore.
Well, if we're going to do that, we left off F. Murray Abraham because he was in Shine, wasn't he? Because he was his
in... no, that was Armin Mueller-Stahl. F. Murray Abraham's in Finding Forrester.
Okay. Yeah.
He's the villain, basically, in Finding Forrester. Jeffrey Jones plays Emperor Joseph II. Jeffrey Jones probably most well known as Principal Rooney in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. At least he's known for that on screen. Off screen, he's known for... the less said about him, the better. Kind of like Jared Fogle. Whatever his name is, when we did Sharknado. Christine Ebersole plays Katerina Cavalieri. Christine Ebersole is in the seminal 80s classic Mac and Me.
movie is freaky.
Cynthia Nixon, Miranda Hobbs from Sex and the City plays Laurel. And this movie has small roles for R2D2 himself, Kenny Baker.
Is that I get that pun?
Yeah, Kenneth McMillan, who played Vladimir Baron Harkonnen in the original Dune, the 1980s Dune, which we did on the show. And Vincent Schiavelli, who had worked with Milos Forman in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. He has a small role at the very beginning of the film. So this is a movie that I've seen one time, I think, all the way through, and I feel like I've seen bits and pieces of it many times over the years, different clips from it. But I think this is just the second time all the way through for me watching it. But it's a movie that you've never seen.
Never seen.
I think Kirby's a fan of it, right? Is that correct?
I believe so, yeah. She was telling me she did the play in high school.
Yes.
Or portions of the play.
Yes.
I don't think, I'm sure they
had to cut out the racy stuff.
They cut out the racy stuff.
They cut out the part where he's saying, eat my shit and all that stuff.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah. All right. So obviously you know who Mozart is, and obviously you know what this movie is, and you know the song "Rock Me Amadeus" by Falco.
I do. I'm all on board.
What I don't know. What sort of expectations did you have going into Amadeus, and what was your end result? What did you think about it?
Yeah, I kind of had high expectations going into it because I've heard so much about it. I've heard good things about it. I didn't know any of the details or anything like that. I just knew it was about Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, and that it was really well acclaimed and liked both by critics and audiences alike. Mm-hmm. The box art always threw me off because it doesn't really. Like, I think it like if you look at it, you won't know what it's for. Yeah. Like if the name was blacked out or like missing. Yeah. Just seeing like that graphic person, I guess it's supposed to be someone from the opera, I guess, or maybe it's the.
Yeah, I've always thought it. I think they're trying. It's like his. It almost looks like his dad. Yeah.
Yeah, when he does the opera about his dad breaking in through the wall and all that kind of stuff, like maybe that's what that's supposed to be. But for me, it always threw me off. Like I never knew what the movie was because you look at the box art and you're like, what is this? And I guess
I agree.
And but Wednesday's movie we're doing Wednesday, like you look at the box art, it's like you see like the main people on there and all that kind of stuff. It's an interesting contrast. Yeah. So yeah, the box art was always like intimidating and weird and just looked like an art film and all that kind of stuff. So I never really wanted to watch it based off of that. And then.
And you were like 3 hours long. What the? No way. That's what I would be.
Let's watch the director's cut.
Yeah.
And then but then I heard really good things about Amadeus. So it's always been like one of those movies like, oh, I got to watch eventually. I got to get to and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So here we are watching it now. And for some reason in the past too, I always thought it was something that was directed by Spielberg, and it's not, obviously, because it's directed by Milos Forman. I would say leading into this movie, even with all that stuff, I actually thought it was pretty good. I really kind of enjoyed it.
It wasn't too overhyped.
It wasn't too overhyped at all. It was just the right amount of hyped. Initially, when we started out with like Salieri being old and he's kind of like in the insane asylum kind of place or in some kind of like, I don't think it's like psychiatric hospital, someplace like that. Sanitarium. Yeah, Metallica. I was really worried about this movie just because, like, it's like, oh, we're going to have flashbacks, we're going to have voiceovers. Like, I just thought the pace of it and everything just wasn't going to be any good. Like, it just made me really, like, it just kind of raised my cackles a little bit. I was like, oh, this is what this is going to be like. I'm not going to enjoy it. But once you get past, like, the first flashback or whatever, I just feel like, okay, you settle into the movie, and his interjections aren't a lot. Like it's not like it's over and over again. I feel like it's enough in there. So that wasn't as distracting as I was worried about. I will say that I am. Oh, my phone's ringing. I am shocked on how good this movie looks. Like, I thought the way the operas were rendered were amazing. Like every time an opera was on the stage, it looked new, it looked different. Even like the minstrel kind of comedy opera looked amazing. Like, you know, it almost looked like I feel like the productions aren't historically accurate, but it would be like what modern audiences of the 80s, what the audiences would have thought of them seeing them as modern audiences saw it portrayed on the screen, right? So like bigger than life and all that kind of stuff. And because, you know, in the late 1800s, they didn't understand stuff like movies and stuff like that. But I just thought like they would look amazing and magical and larger than life, and the costuming was really great. So I was really like amazed by not only like the acting and stuff like that in the story, but the costuming and the way everything was presented just like really was awe-inspiring and just like amazing to me. And I was really captivated by the way things looked and all that kind of stuff in the movie, which I thought was really great. I will say that I think F. Murray Abraham did a great job. Like as Salieri, I thought he was great. You know, the Mozart with Tom Hulce, it's hard because he is playing such like the caricature of Mozart is such a thing. It's not. I don't know if it's rooted in reality or anything, but you just kind of have to get over like this is the way he's playing it, right? And I don't know, it feels a little elevated compared to everything else, but I don't know if that's just Mozart or I don't know anything about Mozart the composer as a person, so I don't know if he had that high pitched laugh or was kind of like aloof and stuff like that, or you know, I don't know all that kind of stuff. So that was a little distracting in the beginning, but I kind of settled into it. I do think the worst person on here, and it's interesting to hear the casting of it, is I think Elizabeth Berridge is almost unbearable in this movie to me. She just seems so out of place, and I know like Milos Forman wanted people like no one really has an accent like a British or European accent. They all have pretty much American accents, you know, or so to me it doesn't sound like they have an accent at all.
Yeah.
But the way she talks sounds so anachronistic to me. It sounded so of the 80s. And it was just like it was like the timbre of her voice just felt very like Valley Girl to me. Yeah. And it just really just set me off. Not set me off. It just really was distracting.
She's like Mozart, whatever.
Well, and that wasn't it. She never called him Mozart. She called him Wolfie.
Wolfie, yeah.
And that
Wolfie,
was
whatever.
That was like nails on the chalkboard with me. Every time she goes Wolfie, 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 this, I'm like, oh, like really? Did they? I don't even know if Wolfie is a like a nickname for Wolfgang, but it was just that drove me crazy. I mean, it's a hard role, but just her voice just kind of really didn't do well for me. But it just kind of took me out of the movie a little bit, and especially her saying Wolfie all the time. Like I'd rather her call him like.
Should she have called him Mando instead?
Yeah, Mando. She did, yeah. Mandalorian, Mando.
Hey, Mando.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just weird. So I digress. So overall, I really liked it. I thought it was really solid. I think the visuals of it is hands above everything else in the movie for me. It's just amazing the way everything looks. I think F. Murray Abraham just knocks it out of the park, and Elizabeth Berridge was not to my taste in this movie. So, but overall, I enjoyed it. It's something I would like to revisit in the future. So yeah. So that's my thoughts on Amadeus. I'm going to toss it over to you. You said you've seen it once before. You've seen it a few other times, bits and pieces and all that kind of stuff. What'd you remember about Amadeus, or do you remember liking it? And what'd you think about it this time around?
I remember not really liking it that much the first time I saw it, but I think I was pretty young, and it just seemed, you know, like you were saying, I mean, was Mozart really like that? I mean, you know, to me, it was just weird. You know, I mean, like he's chasing her around in the first scene. Yeah, the way that he laughs, the way that he acts. Yeah. He's chasing Elizabeth Barrage around in the first scene that where F. Murray Abraham actually meets him or sees him for the first time. I don't think he meets him then, but sees him for the first time, and he's talking backwards and he's saying like "eat my shit" and all this stuff. And I was just like, this doesn't seem. It's very jarring. It does not seem like it's something that would happen back then or whatever. Lo and behold, Mozart was all about the doo-doo jokes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he was. So apparently saying "eat my shit" was actually very much very on par for him.
He's my boy.
Yeah.
Was the magic flute really about pooping?
It probably was. No, he was very into scatological the dookie humor. Apparently he was, because I was reading after I watched it this time, because again, so I will say just real quick, I did like it much better this time. Yeah. But again, afterwards, I was like, does he really like that? I need to know more. And apparently, he wrote a lot of letters. Because back in the day, they wrote all kinds of letters. Yeah. On Wednesday, there's a very important letter that we'll talk about in the movie. It's
like their version of texting.
Basically, yeah. So they wrote a lot of letters. So he wrote letters to his sister. He wrote letters to his father, and he was always talking about shit and shit. I shit on you and shit on me and fart this and fart that and stuff. So he's all about that stuff. Right. So apparently it is accurate for him to act like that. Who knows about the high-pitched laughter and all that stuff, but all the dookie stuff was apparently exactly how he was. So, but no, this time around, because I was worried when I sat down to watch it, because I remember being kind of bored with it the other time that I saw it. And I was like, I don't know, Tom Hulce laughing, being goofy. I'm not so sure about it. But I really settled into it and really enjoyed it this time. I feel like it moves really well, especially for, the director's cut is 3 hours long.
It doesn't feel 3 hours.
It doesn't feel 3 hours. I sat down and watched it, and I was worried about that. I thought, am I going to be sitting here going like, hurry up with this? And I watched a good chunk of it, and I had to pee. So I paused it to go pee, and it was already like 2.5 hours had passed, and I only had like 30 minutes left. And I was like, dang, that flew by. I really didn't feel the length of it at all. But yeah, I agree with you. F. Murray Abraham is fantastic. I actually thought Tom Hulce is really good. I kind of buy the characterization now, but I think he did a really good job in it. He never had a huge career. He definitely acted in movies after Amadeus, but the last movie he was in was Jumper in 2008 or so. He's basically retired from acting. Yeah, you remember that one?
I do. I actually like Jumper.
Yeah, he's in that, and that's the last credit he has on IMDb. I think he still does theater work and stuff, but he's basically retired from film acting.
Interesting.
But he's really solid in this film. Elizabeth Barrage doesn't bother me. I think everybody's pretty good in it. Even good old Cynthia Nixon as the little housekeeper. She's pretty young. I think she was about 17 or 18 when she made this film.
You didn't get Elizabeth Barrage's Valley Girl accent like I did?
No, I didn't. I think, and again, who knows how accurate it really is. Yeah. But I know, nowadays I think more about historical figures. We see portraits of Mozart and we think, or Beethoven or whoever, just somebody old and famous. We see some portrait of them, and you can't picture them, making a fart joke or saying something silly, but they did do that, So it doesn't bother me as much watching this kind of thing now, and because it feels like it has modern sensibilities, but in reality they acted much like we do. Yeah. They just didn't have the same technology and stuff.
Well, the other interesting thing too that I was thinking about the movies this week is the music they're playing is like pop music to us, right?
Yeah.
Like we think about it in like this air of like sophistication and all that kind of stuff because, through the centuries people have studied it and analyzed it and picked it apart. But to them it was, we're just playing popular music. We're going to play the melody, people only hear it once because it's performed live. So we're going to play the melody over and over again, bum, bum, ba, da. So people know that's not in this movie. So people know what it is, and so they can hum it and sing it later on and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So then like I think about like the operas they do is like like John Williams composing for Star Wars, or like Hamilton and stuff like that. Like it was very populist oriented affair, and I think us, at least when I was taught this kind of music, I was always taught it with like this air of like almost superiority to it and all that kind of stuff. But now that I'm older, I realize that no, like these people were like us, and they just made this was, Mozart was basically Megan the Stallion of their time and stuff like that. It's like it's what it was.
He was like Megan the Stallion.
Yeah,
You're right.
Exactly.
You're right.
So,
Damn, Mozart. Yeah. No.
So sorry, I just wanted to jump onto what you were saying because we think about these, and it's probably how they had to sit still and they had to be very still for portraiture or very old photography, so they look very stern and very serious. But I think that is just the nature of the way they were able to capture people back then and stuff, and we don't realize that humans probably haven't changed very much in the last 200 or 300 years, and we think poop is funny, and they probably thought poop was funny.
I'll always think it's funny.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, so that's my little tangent.
And we take recorded music for granted. So
Yes.
back then, you were lucky to go to a concert or an opera, because if you didn't get to go, if you could go your entire life without going to a concert or an opera or something like that, and then you didn't hear music unless you sang it yourself or whatever.
You play it.
Yeah, so so it was like we really take that sort of thing for granted. Now we can just pull it up on our little fancy phones and listen to all of it. But yeah, back then it was a big deal for people to go to all these operas and stuff, and very lavish affairs and big high society kind of thing. So yeah, it's very cool. But yeah, I thought this movie is much, much better. I think just now that I'm older, I could appreciate it more. I could appreciate the performances and the eat my shitness of it all. It's it is really good. I mean, I would definitely watch it again, and I wouldn't have said that before I watched it the second time. I would have been like, oh, that's kind of boring. But now I'm like, no, it's actually really good, and I think that the acclaim that it got was well deserved, because I think it's a very, very excellent film.
And I liked how they used the classical music to score the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not a well-studied person, so I might be missing something, but to me it sounded like everything they played were excerpts of either Mozart or Salieri.
Yeah, I believe pretty much they are.
It doesn't sound like anything
Yeah.
was composed in addition to that or any of that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I think it pretty much is just Mozart's music and
Yeah.
maybe Salieri's music as well.
So I thought that was cool and interesting, and I thought it added a lot to the movie. The
Yeah.
only thing that kind of got lost is I almost wish there was like something telling me like, okay, we're watching this opera or we're listening to like this symphony or this movement, stuff like that, because I am not, I can't instantly recognize one of his pieces, so I can't say, okay, this is exactly what they're playing or what they're getting at right here. Because I know like one of Mozart's biggest operas is the Magic Flute, but I can't pick out any pieces of it. So I was like, oh, is this one they're doing? Is this part of Magic Flute? Oh, I don't think it is. Stuff like that. Just like I guess that would be more of a watching commentary or watching something after the fact. Pop-up video. I asked for that a lot.
I know.
But I wish I had something that kind of clued me into what pieces we're watching and stuff like that, just so I can go back and check them out post this show.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I agree.
It's not like a nitpick. It's just something would have been nice.
Yeah. No, definitely. You're like, hey, wait, what are they performing now? Yeah, I'm not sure.
Because the one with like his dad's cool. Like it looks metal.
Yeah, it does. Doesn't it? Yeah.
It's like,
Hell
yeah.
Hell yeah.
They're like, this is the darkest opera. It's like Mozart's going through his emo phase, like getting in touch with his like My Chemical Romance or whatever, just like rock on stage. Dude busts through a wall with a mask on. So cool looking, man. Like I'm into it.
Totally. I'd be blown away by that. I'd be blown away by it now, seeing it if I saw it live.
Because also, sorry, this I'm like on tangents today.
Oh, go for it.
Because like in some of the modern retelling of Batman, they're watching Der Fledermaus, which I think is also a Mozart. Or maybe it's not Der Fledermaus. They're watching another Mozart thing where the bats come down on the line. So like we see that in Batman Begins and stuff. And I think that's supposed to be like, I think that's a Mozart opera.
Is that before Bruce's parents die?
Yeah,
we get to watch them die.
Yeah, he wants to leave.
Yeah.
So
it scares me.
Yeah, it's all Mozart's fault.
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one thing I was gonna say, I think when this movie came out, obviously we have the internet now, and you can research this stuff more. But I think at the time, that this movie came out, maybe the play as well, people thought that Salieri and Mozart really had this sort of a relationship, but you know, as probably most people know now, this movie plays fast and loose with the facts, and you know, it is a movie. It's done for dramatic purposes.
Yeah.
Salieri, in reality, so in the movie, he's like. He abstains. He's wears a chastity belt or something. He abstains from doing the nasty and marrying and all that stuff. But in real life, he was married and he had like 8 kids or something like that. And I honestly, I think if memory serves, I think he's married to Caterina Cavalieri, who's the Christine Ebersole character in the movie. I think he was actually married to her in real life. He and Mozart did know each other. And I mean, they did interact. And Mozart, I read some excerpts from some of his letters where he did complain about Salieri at certain moments, but they also were friendly at other times. So that, you know, like anybody, sometimes they had disagreements, but sometimes they were friendly. And in fact, after Mozart died, so Mozart left behind 2 sons. He had other children, but they all died. He had 2 sons, and one of his sons was tutored by Salieri in music.
That's cool.
So yeah, and incidentally, Mozart's 2 sons, neither one of them married or had kids. So the Mozart, if anybody tells you they're a descendant of Mozart, they're lying, because the family line ended with his 2 kids.
Unless they're really old.
It was
vampires.
Over. Yeah.
I heard that Tom Hulce learned how to play the piano for the role, and like when he was doing the upside down stuff was actually him playing.
Yeah, I think I heard that too.
And then the other thing I read was that some musicologists have watched it, and every note that you see played on the piano, you actually hear that note on through the speakers and stuff. So it's all accurate, the playing and stuff like that, what they're playing, what you see on screen, you actually are hearing that stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
So I thought that was cool. And that's just like, you know, that's like some Kubrick level, like Milos Forman kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Was being like, you know, I'm going to be hyper accurate on that kind of stuff, which I applaud. I think it's very cool and adds some like, you know, authenticity to it.
Yeah, as far as Milos Forman goes, like I've seen One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I've never seen Hair. I've seen Man on the Moon. I haven't seen the movies that he made before he came to America, so I should probably get on that. But I like Amadeus, I think, better than One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, I think.
Yeah.
So Amadeus may be my favorite Milos Forman film out of the few that I've seen. Because I don't like Man on the Moon.
I like Man on the Moon more than you do. I haven't seen One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest since college, since I tried to try out for the play. So I don't know. I probably like Amadeus more just too, but that might be recency bias.
Recency bias at work.
Yep.
All right, so this movie was nominated for a big chunk of Academy Awards. It was nominated for Best Cinematography and Best Editing. It lost both of those to The Killing Fields. Tom Hulce was nominated for Best Actor, but he lost to Salieri. Mozart, in this case, lost to Salieri. Tom Hulce lost to F. Murray Abraham. F. Murray Abraham won Best Actor that year. It also won Best Sound, Best Makeup, Best Costume Design, Best Art Direction, Best Adapted Screenplay, since it was adapted from Peter Shaffer's play, Best Director for Milos Forman, and Best Picture. So it racked up the Academy Awards in 1985. The soundtrack for Amadeus actually won a Grammy for Best Classical Album of 1984.
It's almost on its way to an EGOT.
Yeah, I'm telling you this exactly. When it was originally released, it was released at 161 minutes and it was rated PG. But nowadays, typically people watch the director's cut, which runs 180 minutes. Wow. It's rated R because it has some boobies in it. Amadeus was selected for the National Preservation in the National Film Registry by the Library of Congress in 2019, and on AFI's 100 Years, 100 Movies list that they came out with in 1998, it ranked number 53. However, in the revised list that came out in 2007, whenever, it got dropped. So
completely off the list?
Yeah, completely off the list.
Wow.
It was 53 on the 1998 list, no longer on the newest list, but whatever. It's 89% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, 95% audience. Siskel and Ebert loved it. They gave it 2 big thumbs up. Siskel listed it as the second best film of 1984, just behind Sergio Leone's Once Upon a Time in America. And Roger Ebert actually picked it as the best film of 1984.
Wow.
But Leonard Maltin, 2.5 stars for Leonard. Not as hot on this one.
He's been on a 2.5 star kick.
No, he's the 2.5 star man.
He is. All right. Anything else?
That is it. Sir.
That is Amadeus. It's a thumbs up from us. So check that out if you haven't. We spoiled parts of it, but not too much.
Yeah. Mozart dies, by the way.
Yeah.
Sorry to burst your bubble. He died.
Yeah, he's not. He's not. He's not a vampire. He doesn't
No
live
longer
forever.
living.
All that kind of stuff.
He is not.
So on these Monday episodes, we always like to talk about what we've been watching. I'm gonna toss it over to you. What have you been watching?
Not a whole lot. Just haven't had a lot of time, but I've already kind of hinted at it, and I think we both have. On Wednesday, we're going to talk about another composer, another movie involving a composer. So I watched a third movie featuring a composer, and this one is pretty weird. It's called Listomania, and it's about the composer Franz Liszt. It stars Roger Daltrey. It came out in 1975, which is the same year that Tommy, the movie version of the musical Tommy that The Who did, also came out. So he was in two different musicals that year. This one is directed by Ken Russell, Listomania, that is. And if you've seen a Ken Russell film, I mean, he definitely had his own unique kind of visual style, and just he most of his movies are kind of out there,
Yeah.
and this one is no exception. If you are easily offended by phallic imagery, I'll just say that I wouldn't come near Listomania with a 10-inch. You know what? I wouldn't come near it because you will definitely be offended. But
That's awesome.
I actually liked it overall. It's really bizarre, but I kind of dug it. It was interesting to me. I would say one of the biggest complaints I had with it, and this is weird because I do like The Who and I do like Roger Daltrey, but I didn't think Roger Daltrey's singing was that great in it. Like, he sounded a little off key sometimes and a little flat sometimes, and it wasn't his best performance. And it's weird that Ken Russell or whoever didn't make him do it again.
Yeah.
They just kind of they used a take maybe where he wasn't at his best.
He was focusing,
or maybe it's just me, but
maybe Kid Russell was focusing on something else the whole time.
Maybe he was. Maybe he was.
It's so Liszt is known as a piano composer, and I guess he sings too.
Well, in this movie he does. I don't know if he did in real life. Yeah. It's bizarre, and I mean it's anachronistic, and I mean they take all kinds of liberties with it. It's really out there, but I mean I liked its weirdness and its offbeatness. It also has, I mean, it's got a lot of people in it, but it's got Rick Wakeman, who was a famous keyboardist. He was in Yes, the group Yes, and he's done a lot of other stuff like that. He's in it, and it's just it's crazy. It's out there, but it is offensive to some. So buyer beware if you watch it.
Offensive to some too.
I mean, it's not horrible. And again, I mean, it sounds bad because I really do like Roger Daltrey and The Who, but it's not. I don't know, or maybe just the songs. Maybe I was just like, this song's not very good.
No Baba O'Reilly
There's no Baba O'Reilly in it. I wish there was. That's a great album. But I watched it on HBO Max because it's in the TCM hub on HBO Max. So HBO Max has got, or TCM rather, has got some racy movies. It's Anyway, that's all I've been watching. What have you been watching?
Well, you watched a movie based off of movies that we're watching this week, and I watched a movie influenced by movies that we're watching next week.
Oh, our first week of Halloween.
Okay. So we put a movie on there. I'm not going to say what it is yet, but once we put that movie on the list, it made me think of another movie that I've seen that I wanted to revisit. It was a movie that came out in 1998. It's a movie about a vampire, but it's not the one you're thinking about. It's not Blade. It was actually a movie that came out before Blade about vampires called Vampires, actually, or John Carpenter's Vampires.
That's an appropriate title, Vampires.
Yeah.
It's all about vampires. It's called Vampires.
Its name is it's on the tin.
It is.
Vampires. And it's directed by John Carpenter, so sometimes it's called John Carpenter's Vampires, or at least that's what the title sequence does.
Yeah.
So I actually remember seeing this in theaters and being pretty disappointed.
I saw it in theaters as well.
Do you remember how you felt about it?
I was also very disappointed. I couldn't stand it.
I don't know if it's because I had bottom of the barrel expectations this time around, or nostalgia, or knew what I was getting into and stuff like that. If you know what it is, it's not bad. It's like Anaconda, right? It's like
I feel like most people like it, right?
Oh, really?
Isn't it? Is it not? Like I feel like every time I've heard somebody talk about vampires, they like it, and I'm always the downer who's like, oh, I didn't like it, and they're like, I hate you. Don't talk to me. So.
I didn't know that. Maybe
I could be wrong. I guess in my small circle of people, I feel like everybody else I know besides you likes it. So
Yeah.
maybe that's just me.
It's not great. It's okay. It's really cheesy, and reading behind the scenes, like they basically more than had the budget before they started shooting, so they had to go and rewrite stuff. Apparently, like Stephen Baldwin, no, one of the Baldwins is gonna be in it. I think it was Stephen, and then he backed out, so they just grabbed Daniel Baldwin to be in it. And I'm like, how many
They're
movies?
like, we're just gonna get another Baldwin.
How many movies is Daniel Baldwin in and stuff like that?
Yeah, not.
It's not great. It's interesting. I think the best part is the guy who plays the main vampire. He's the main bad guy in the Karate Kid. Ian Griffith. I forget his first name. He's the guy with the slick back white hair, not Kurosi or whatever from the Karate Kid movies. Thomas Ian Griffith. Thomas Ian.
I have no idea. You're talking about the first Karate Kid movie?
No, the second and third one.
I couldn't tell you who's in that. I only know the first one pretty well. I mean, I've seen the others, but it's been too long.
It is. Hold on, let me look it up. It is
that guy.
This guy, Thomas Ian Griffith. I thought he does a pretty good job as like the main vampire and stuff like that. So I like again, I wasn't watching it. I put it in its context. I knew it wasn't gonna be great. And but I had fun watching it. It's interesting.
I need to watch it again, honestly.
And there's like direct to video sequels too. There's like vampires like Los Muertos, and there's like a vampires that takes place in like Thailand or something like that. I was looking at IMDb.
It's like Anaconda has all those direct to video sequels.
I gotta find the rest of them just to watch them.
Hey, why not?
But that So I guess that's a little hint for next week of what kind of movies we're watching for the first week of October. So
werewolf movies.
Werewolf movies, exactly. Because what goes with vampires but werewolves? So that's what I've been watching. Also been busy like you, but I got a chance to squeeze in John Carpenter's Vampires.
Nice.
All right, so we kind of hinted at what we're going to be following this up. So why don't you go ahead and tell the folks what'd you decide to pair with Amadeus here?
Yes, so Amadeus was born in 1756. 14 years later, another famous composer was born by the name of Ludwig van Beethoven.
We call him Wiggy?
Yeah, no.
Luigi, actually.
Luigi. Yeah, she does call him Luigi,
She does.
right? So I decided to pair Amadeus with the movie about Beethoven, where he wrote, and it's factually based, he wrote a letter addressed to his immortal beloved, and scholars to this day still debate on who it actually was addressed to. The movie's called, appropriately enough, Immortal Beloved. We'll talk about that on Wednesday.
Sounds good. All right, guys. Well, stay tuned for that. That was everything Amadeus and more. Please like, subscribe, share, do all that social media stuff. It really does help, and we really do appreciate it. Let us know if you've seen Amadeus. Hopefully you have, and let us know what your thoughts are down below. If you're watching YouTube, or shoot us an email, realshame@gmail.com. And stay tuned Wednesday when we find out how immortal is Beloved. I mean, is she a vampire? She probably is a vampire.
She might be.
I mean, hey, that's what we're doing. Vampire themes right now.
She might be.
She's probably a vampire. So we'll see what becomes of that on Wednesdays. We'll see you soon, guys. Have a good one. Bye.